This is HighIntensityBusiness.com with Lawrence Neal, helping you achieve your health and fitness goals. Become a great personal trainer and build your high-intensity strength training business.
Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to HighIntensityBusiness.com. This is episode 231. Can you believe it? Today's guest is Richard Chartrand. Richard is a fitness enthusiast who has been practicing strength training for 38 years using Nautilus principles. About 10 years ago, Richard had heart surgery, and just 12 to 15 months afterward, he placed in several bodybuilding contests, training just 15 minutes per week. He's a lifelong learner and resistor of dogma. I love that last bit. Richard was HIIT Uni certified in 2018 and started training clients in February 2019 and has built his business up to 18 clients so far. Congratulations. Richard, welcome back to the show.
Thanks very much for having me.
So how are you? It's been a while since we met in the Resistance Exercise Conference earlier this year. What have you been up to? How are things?
Well, primarily focusing on my business. I've got a couple of other irons in the fire doing other things. And I started to take jiu-jitsu, which is a new thing that I wound up being approached by a jiu-jitsu person who's now somebody who's training with me. His girlfriend's training with me. Those are two of my clients. And that's been humbling and fun. I never did that. I got away a little bit from hockey, and I've started doing that instead. So, but other than that, health is good, family is good. So all the important ones I can check off.
Awesome. So was that what motivated you to change, move away from hockey? Was that less injury risk moving from hockey to jiu-jitsu, or?
No, it was more, I don't know if it is less injury risk. Just that when I used to work in a city about 45 minutes from here, when I was with the finance services company, I would drive there, play hockey in the morning, and then go to work. Now I would be driving like an hour to drive there and then come back. And also that was a time where I got some clients during that time shift. So, it was costing money to go in a number of ways. And then the jiu-jitsu class is 15 minutes away. And I'd long thought about martial arts. I kind of like the idea of sort of the Renaissance man, if you will, well-rounded person who reads and my wife and I do ballroom dancing and various things. And I've never really known anything about self-defense. So I thought it would be a good thing to do. And as far as injury risk, when I asked the teacher, will I get hurt? He said, yes. He says, but if we don't do anything stupid, he says, when I say get hurt, he says, yeah, you'll get some bruises and things like that. That's going to happen. But if we don't do anything stupid, and he's very conscious of safety too, which is why he was attracted to what I did, and he's really focused. But obviously in martial arts, getting hurt is a distinct possibility, but it shouldn't be anything that's, long term, something that you'll get over. But there's always an element of risk in any sport, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love your intention around that in terms of wanting to be more of a rounded human being. I often think about that actually, and I had it on my list, and I've touched on it on podcasts to actually myself develop some skills in self-defense, because to be quite frank, I'd be pretty useless, I think, in that situation, aside from having the fitness to run away.
Right.
but starting a family this year, wanting to be able to protect my loved ones. Some people might think it sounds silly. It's like, well, when are you going to be in that situation? But you don't know, and better to be prepared, than not be able to. So,
congratulations, by the way, on because you're soon to become a father. Congratulations, that's really exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, it's weird to say that and slightly scary. So, yeah, appreciate it.
Life as you know it is about to end.
Wow, yeah, it's going to be quite the challenge, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So I wanted to obviously talk to you about the shift you made in your career and business. Do you want to just talk a little bit about your background and why you decided to transition to what you're doing now?
Well, the ending of the financial services was not actually, well, I shouldn't say it wasn't up to me. The actual position that I had was downsized. So I went to work one day and was basically told that my position would end. Now, I could have easily transitioned with the same company to a number of other roles. I chose not to. And immediately after, there were a couple of different things that I entertained, including this. So I was sort of in limbo, I guess, for a while, not really sure what I wanted to commit to. And as this started, and I had some equipment that I had bought, actually, I was thinking the other day that some of my Nautilus machines I actually bought in 2001. So I had some equipment. I picked up a few other things. And then as it started to pick up, it just sort of took a life of its own. And I said, okay, I'm going to make the commitment to try to build it up. And I'm working from my home. My overhead is very small. I'm fortunate that I have a room here that's about 25 by 25 feet, or you're probably thinking, so would that be about, say 10 by 10? Oh no, you're.
Ironically, I'm more okay with feet, with square footage. Yeah.
So same thing, Canada. That's right. We're all Commonwealth here. So my overhead is very low, and I really enjoy. I live out in the country here, and I really enjoy not having to step out my door and drive anywhere, and working from home is really great. And as I told you earlier, I have a speaker system in here in between. I'm listening to music, and so it's a lot of fun. So, and now recently I realized that there's a government program that will help out small businesses with small grants. And I've applied for that, and I'll soon find out if I get it. But part of the process is putting together a business plan, et cetera, which at the beginning, my business plan was pretty much, let's see if this is even feasible. Let's see if I can survive. And now at 18 clients and growing, I would say, because I'm getting more and more referrals, I think it's feasible. So now I've started to think on a bigger scale as to, would I eventually get a second location? I look around at some of, our peers who have done this and are up to 2 and 3 locations. And I'm thinking that this is a very real possibility for me. So I want to start and really put together more of a business plan rather than, going beyond, is it feasible? And I'll get to 20 clients and then I'll reevaluate. So now this is timely.
Awesome. So a few things. When you said it took on life of its own, is that a way of you saying you had people, you already had some equipment and you already had people, but you would perhaps talk about training in passing conversation, and then people would ask you, oh, would you be interested in training me? And you had a small client base. Did it kind of happen organically to begin with like that? Or was it more proactive?
I'm trying to think now, to tell you the truth. Well, you and I both have a background in sales. And as an insurance guy, the thing is, I don't know what it was like in your field of sales, but in my field of sales, walk-in business is virtually non-existent. You have to go out and find every client one at a time. You have to get on the phone and you have to, talk people into even, listening to you in the first place. Because there's a natural aversion. I don't know what it's like in Great Britain.
It's the same in IT business. It's the same, I'd say, yeah.
Right. So, but that's really been valuable for me, because what I started at the beginning is I just got on the phone with people and just offered them free introductory sessions. And that's what I've been doing. Actually, this week I have to get back on, because part of the challenge is that as I've had more clients, it's more time consuming. And so I've spent less time finding new clients and working with the existing clients. So one of my goals this week is to get back on the phone again, because I allowed myself to let that slide. In sales, that's a taboo. That's type of thing. And so I just continue, and I of course get leads from my existing clients, people who like my Facebook page, I just follow up, and in the community, people get to know me a little bit more, and I just follow up and try to get them in there, because my idea at the beginning, and I've still, but it's been spontaneous, I can't take credit for it, is if I can get 2 or 3 people a week in for a free session, I'll probably get 1 new client a week, give or take. And it depends, because I belong to some networking breakfast groups. And with some of them, part of the deal is that you spend time with each other, learning about each other's businesses, so that you can refer people to each other. So those people, might be going through the motions, i.e. they'll meet with you because it's part of it. They're more interested in probably getting business for their business than mine. Because if people come to me, either from a referral, word of mouth, or whatever, the closing ratio is really high, because if they're already interested, by the time they get here, they're already half sold. When I started selling insurance, one of my early mentors said, "Rick, you don't get paid to sell life insurance. You get paid to find people who want life insurance." And I think that's the truth, is that I don't think many of us are going to convince, committed couch potatoes to suddenly become active. I think there are people now that they may have gotten into a rut and got away from it, but I find that most of my clients have a history of, having been into the fitness mindset and the health mindset. It's been a priority for them. And so, they've maybe, fallen into a rut, or because of either injuries or the, what you and I would consider unreasonable time commitments of most programs, didn't stick with it. So when they see this type of thing where it's a relatively short commitment, then typically the closing ratio is much higher. I just have to get on the phone and make sure I get them in here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly one way, an effective way to acquire customers. It's something, as you know, I did with the membership, certainly in the beginning. And that's how, we obviously had a phone conversation before you became a member. And I guess one thing I'm interested in, though, is as you grow your business, do you think that you will replace that with some kind of system which has more leverage? So, for example, you've got a wonderful new website I was checking out today. I'm very, very impressed. And you've got the function there where people can obviously book a free session for your website and inquire that way. I know it's early days for the website, so I assume it's probably not a massive source of traffic for you right now, and certainly something that will grow over time. But I guess where you want to probably head is building that out into an effective funnel, so that you can maybe have people sign up for free sessions via the website and through email, and or have them actually schedule a phone call with you through your website, so that it's more you're basically scheduling a batch of phone calls that are pre-scheduled as versus cold calling, which I guess is what you would be doing, right? Well, not cold calling, but calling maybe some warm people in that too.
Yeah, I don't know. Eventually I have had, I also got some printed rack cards. If you know what I mean by a rack card, they're, about 4x8 cards that, you put in various public places, restaurants and things like that.
Like leaflets, kind of.
Kind of like leaflets, only
right.
They're just a harder cardboard, and they're just two-sided, right? And actually, Donna, the client I told you about that's got me 5 or 6 clients, I thought my hairstylist had talked me up and whatnot, but she literally just picked one of those up. And in fairness, Blair Wilson, I stole one of his rack cards from his gym, and I just basically copied it almost exactly. I let him know. I showed him whatnot. He's fine with it. And I've had a couple of people who have simply picked them up in public places. Ideally, the idea of some sort of a website that would attract people and whatnot, that wouldn't be ideal. At this point, maybe I'm old school. I'm not holding my breath for that. I think if leveraging to something else might be somebody else making the calls, i.e. having a person. And I don't know, I'm not a big fan of cold calling, meaning calling complete strangers. there should be some warmth to it, right? I used to say, you're going to hear some of my old sales training. I used to say, cold call is God's way of punishing you for not getting enough referrals. and so I really believe that there should be some warmth to it. But I still think a person could be calling saying, I'm calling on behalf of Rick Chartrand, and he would like to offer you an introductory session. Other things I've actually thought about it on Facebook, and I haven't put this together, is as people's birthdays. I try to be really diligent on my social media to recognize people's birthdays. Well, I thought for those people who are local, I would actually send them a birthday gift, i.e. 3 free sessions or something, and tell them, by the way, if you're not interested, you can re-gift this to somebody else. My challenge where I'm hesitating a little bit is my existing clients could say, well, how come these people are getting free stuff and whatnot?
It's not your birthday. Just tell them that.
What's that?
Just say it's not your birthday.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Is you have to stay consistent, because when their birthday comes along, are they going to get 3 free sessions? You know what I mean? So I'm sort of trying to figure out, because you have to be, I think, careful with special offers for new clients when your existing clients could see them going, well, geez, these new people are getting a deal that I'm not getting. So I want to make sure it doesn't create a conflict from that point of view if they become aware. But certainly leveraging, I don't know exactly what it'll look like, whether it's on a website, things like that. But right now I'm finding that just good old-fashioned word of mouth. And it might be, like say if you're a Luke Carlson, where he probably, his clients are in the hundreds, and of course is in a bigger community. For me, getting from 20 to 40, I think sort of an organic one at a time thing will get me there. And then what happens too is when I spoke to Doug McGuff, I had a consultation with him, or I had talked to him about the possibility of getting some doctors in the same room and having him do a presentation via Skype for doctors, thinking that his credentials could attract doctors. And his answer was, to tell you the truth, Rick, if you wanted to spend money and do that, you could, but he says, I think in fairness, you'd probably get more bang for your buck bringing in coffee and donuts to the frontline staff at the medical office and having them hand out your card, because your doctors are primarily too busy to refer clients to you anyways. So, but what he said is, if at the time I spoke to him, I had about 10 clients, and he said, Rick, if you're 10, it won't be long until you get to 20. And then once you get to 20, he says, you're going to start to see that it'll happen to where, you'll get to a point, and he referred to Doug
Holland.
What's the other?
Doug Holland?
Holland, yes. Yeah. Who, trains a number of people. He says, once you're getting to 30 or 40, you're getting to the point where that's almost as many as you can handle if you're a single trainer. So, long-winded answer to that is because the actual booking facility on my website, I'm actually probably going to replace it with just call the number type of thing. The idea, the guy who designed my website is the idea that if there's fewer steps, if they can book, there's less friction, there's less chance of them changing their mind. But we've run into some challenges because I use multiple calendars. In my website, the website doesn't seem to be able to. So I have had a couple people book through the website, but typically I have to call them back and rebook because there's a conflict because it's not reading my. Like if you were to look at it, you'd say, geez, Rick, it looks like you have no clients because it's not recognizing all my calendars. So it would be nice, but I'm using multiple calendars, and on my Mac, they all sync. But it doesn't seem to, the software for the website doesn't seem to adapt to it very well.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it could be a very effective tactic, actually, to put your phone number there. I think you'll find that will perhaps convert quite well. Firstly, if you can get someone on the phone, that's going to be effective for you anyway to convert. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens when you put the number there, whether you get more inquiries as a result of that. So keep us posted, maybe in the blog to this or in the membership about, how that works out for you. So I want to just talk about your kit, what you have there in the facility. What pieces did you start out with? And why did you perhaps decide to add to that? How did you decide on what you were going to add to the equipment you've got there?
Well, I started out, I had a next-gen Nautilus machines. I had a decline bench, a leg press, and a low back. And trying to think now what else I had at the beginning. I had a Bowflex Ultimate, which you're probably looking at right behind me right now. And then I got a PowerTech, which is basically a multi-unit. I think I'm looking at my thing. You're seeing that. That's in yellow, which is a multi-unit. I primarily use it as a shoulder press. And then I got a gluteator because I thought it was unique. Something that set me apart and that other gyms don't have. To my immediate right here is a 4-way neck machine. And I think, I'm glad I bought it because as I have worked the neck and clients work the neck, they really like it. And I realize that it really works a lot of the muscles in the upper back. From the middle of the back all the way down almost to the waist type of thing. I've cleared some space. Later tonight, I'm going to get a hammer strength leg extension machine because the hammer strength machines here in Canada anyways, if you look around on the, eBay type sites and whatnot, they can be had for, relatively inexpensive. And I like them. I think they're good quality. But I'm actually right now working with Randy Rindfleisch, and he's about to put out a machine using the ARX type technology, which is going to go under the brand of Phoenix, I think, is what he's looking at doing. So, that's right, yeah. So I think you probably may be aware of that and whatnot. So that's the next step for me. And that may replace some of the pieces. So it won't replace a neck machine. It won't replace a low back machine. I don't think it'll replace the leg extension either, but it may very well replace the chest press and the leg press and the Bowflex. So, it was supposed to be available in April. Here we are in September, and I'm told it's a matter of weeks now, and hopefully that's be the case. Because that technology, the other thing it would do, going back to the number of clients, is you could shorten the amount of time that a workout actually takes. And of course, that means you can train more clients. And also, what I think is really neat about it is, in between clients, the good news about the hammer strength is it's relatively inexpensive. It's also, if you need to move stuff around in your room, it's relatively easy to move. You just take the plates off and it can be moved, as opposed to the weight stack stuff weighs a ton. You need strong men and you might damage your floor moving it. But there's the time of getting it. Whereas with the Phoenix type of technology, then you just basically, there's no prep. The client gets in, you plug in their information, and away they go. So, because I need 15 minutes between clients just to set up their weights, because I like to get everything set up for the entire workout before they start. So, one of your original questions is the pieces too. I wanted pieces in such a way that I didn't have to play with machines in between workouts. You know what I mean? To have everything set up so they can go from machine to machine to machine.
Yeah, that's one of the few cons, I suppose, of plate-loaded stuff, is it's slightly more arduous to have to take plates on and off. Whereas, although the pin-loaded weight stacks are more difficult to move, as you said there, at least it's just a matter of changing the pin when you're changing. Of course,
with the pin loaded, friction is all a matter of, do you have the proper pulleys and, and belts? Whereas the plate loaded stuff is basically friction free, right? Because it's just pivoting around one, hinge, right? So I really like the feel of those machines as well.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so let me just see what else I wanted to make sure we covered. So do you think, obviously you're going to get to a point probably quite soon where you are going to be run off your feet training people. Do you envisage yourself hiring trainers at some point?
Yeah, I have a brother who is 4 years my senior, and he's recently retired, and he's an advocate, and he's quite familiar with and he's already has filled in for me, because every now and then I'm going to want to take a day off. Every now and then I'm going to get a cold, or take a holiday and whatnot. And so he's filling in. He's actually got some dates for him to come in and fill in. And eventually, I'm actually identified a couple of clients. One client who I trained earlier today, if she winds up listening to this, she might be surprised. She works in somewhere where she really doesn't like it, and I could see her actually doing a really good job. Because eventually, because what I would like to eventually move on, thinking about business plan, is spending less time working in the business and spending more time working on the business, right? And, for example, Luke Carlson, of course, that's a whole other echelon where he's at, and what he's doing is really amazing. But I don't know, and maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't know how much time he's spending actually training clients.
I think it's like one morning a week. He does that just to keep a hand in it, because he enjoys it. I think it's a Sunday morning. At least that's last time he told me.
And I don't think you'd ever want to get away from it, because I think you would lose touch of different things. But spend less time on that and spend more time sort of operating the business and coordinating things, because part of the challenge is if you are training people all the time, as I said earlier, all of a sudden my phone calls started to, dwindle off, and I wasn't making as many, because where I'm at right now, it creates an income, but it's not where I want to be, right? I'm fortunate from my old career, I have a pension for life. So I have money coming in, a stream of income coming in for life. I'm 60 years old. We have government pensions. So we have streams of income that are coming in over and above, and I have very low overhead. So, it gives me more flexibility than some people who may be starting a new business and need to use that new business to, pay the rent right from day one. I have more flexibility, but still, I don't want to do it. If I'm going to spend a certain amount of hours doing something, I want it to be lucrative, enough to be a feasible business, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's just like you said there, if you want to grow beyond a certain size, you have to focus on the higher impact activities. You have to build, like you say, work on the business and build systems in place, so that you're not doing all of the work. I was watching something earlier today, which was talking about Richard Branson, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, but it's basically saying like Richard Branson is able to do what he does because he does nothing. He has 71,000 employees. I don't know. Well, I'm not sure if that's true now. That was from a presentation in 2017, but I'm sure it's probably similar. And he's obviously working at a very high level, working with people, managing, but not doing the work. And that's not to be, I think people sometimes hear that and think it's a bit ridiculous, but I think that's where kind of high intensity training business owners have to aim for. It's being able to operate at that high level, and begin to, delegate some of these things out or use software to automate things. I don't think it matters what business you're in. I think this is just one of those principles that you have to embrace in order to actually grow beyond a certain point, unless you want to be the person, you want to have a small lifestyle business where you are the sole trainer and you train all the people, right? So it's a personal choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in any business, what I believe is that sometimes some of the things that will enable you to survive are the same things that will hold you back from going beyond main survival. So you have to always evaluate. And so it depends on the situation. I mean, if somebody comes in and let's say they already have a large amount of capital and they're prepared to sink in a large amount of capital and not only, machines, but, hire a bunch of people and do all these things and then go from there, they're investing, they're taking a risk. But I mean, the truth is that, their odds of getting there. Whereas if you're starting from scratch, then you're always going to, I think, have to walk the fine line and make some decisions as to, okay, I don't want to grow too big too fast, because a lot of businesses invest and it looks like, oh, geez, they're doing great because all of a sudden they got a whole bunch more clients and they're a whole lot busier. But if you look at the bottom line, is they're not making any more money than they were making when they were just doing it themselves. And that could be okay if it means that 2 years or a year down the road, that's where they need to be. So what I see is some businesses stagnate because the person's not willing to make the investments, not willing to take the risk, not willing to let go of letting other people do things for them. And some businesses also can crash and burn from trying to do too much too soon. And of course, the art is trying to find, the balance between those two. And I guess it starts out too, because you might get somebody, like who's Doug Holland, my perception here, so I could be saying something stupid, that, he's quite happy with doing everything himself, sort of low tech and whatnot, and seems to be doing quite well.
I'd say it's 100% accurate.
And is happy with the way it's going, whereas Luke Carlson is like, no, that's not what he wants. And of course, you determine what it is that you want. That's where the business plan comes in, and what makes it happy for you. Because of course, once you start, if you got Luke Carlson's situation, Luke Carlson, if he's got 50 employees and 4 locations, he's got a lot more headaches potentially. That can happen. I mean, one of his trainers is having marital problems. That becomes Luke's problem. Any of those things can be bigger. So if that's what you want, whereas Doug's situation is pretty straightforward, right? Doug has to worry about Doug, and that's it. So one has to, I think, determine what it looks like for you and what you want to do. Because every business, I know the biggest challenge, and you've had some good things from Luke Carlson on how to hire and retain good people, because hiring and retaining good people is every business's Achilles heel, right? So, that's, whereas if you're a one-person operation, you don't have to worry about that. But if you're a one-person operation, there's only so many hours in a day. You can only run so fast.
Yeah, exactly. And it's difficult to scale if you do that. And also, you'll just run yourself into the ground. Obviously, Doug Holland is the exception. And there's maybe a few people like him who just seem to love that, and fair play to him. But it's certainly, as you know, I'm recently certified with HIT Uni myself. And I'll be doing some kind of personal training venture as well soon. And I'm very happy to obviously train people in the beginning and learn that craft, but it's not my intention to repeat a Doug Holland in terms of, running whatever he does, 120 plus sessions a week personally. He's a rare breed in that sense, but I think for most people, it would just, run them into the ground is my opinion, I think.
I think most new businesses, what I used to tell people, because I preached a lot, the idea of balance between your health, your career, your family, and all those things. But the caveat I would say is that there are periods in your life where you're going to have periods of imbalance. For example, you're about to enter one of those because you're about to become a father. So for the first next 1 to 3 years, that your son or daughter you're going to be, people talk about being a workaholic, right? Well, when you're a new parent, for the first little while, that's going to dominate your life. But if when your kid is 17 or 27, that's still the case, then somewhere along the line, right? So I'm going to use the analogy that a new business is a lot like a new baby. Is that at the beginning, if you are sort of being a bit of a workaholic and really having to do that, and of course you and I are at different stages in our lives, but it's like a new baby for the first 3 years. But if 15 years in, you're still working like that and your family life is suffering and your health is suffering and whatever else are totally imbalanced. I mean, unless, not to generalize for everybody, if you're absolutely passionate about what you do and that's what you get up in the morning and love doing every day, but, some people get to the point where the business is running them instead of them running their business. And I have a colleague, a friend who has been very successful in financial services. His income is probably close to $1 million a year now. And now he delegates more and more. And he says, at one time I invested in my business so that I can increase my revenue. But he says, now the revenue is where I want it to be. I'm investing in my business so I can buy back time.
Yeah. Buying time is a whole different mindset.
It's a whole thing, because for him, somebody would say, why aren't you retiring? He's in his mid-50s. He could afford to have retired quite a while back. He still enjoys what he's doing, but he takes a lot of time off. He takes 4 or 5 vacations a year, and he takes a lot of time off. So now his investing is to bring back time, right? Which, of course, time freedom and money freedom, you've probably heard that. That's the secret, right? Because you've got all the money in the world, no time. What's the point? And vice versa, you get all the time in the world, no money, then hope you like watching TV.
Yeah, no, there's some really wise words. And I like your analogy with, raising the baby and being at different stages of the business. I think that's really true. You've been obviously part of the HIT Business membership for a while now. You're super active in the community, which I'm really pleased to see, sharing your workouts of the week, your videos, asking great questions, sharing your experiences, kind of using it as your own personal journal for your business as well. I'd love to hear, what your thoughts are, how you've used the membership since being a member and how it's helped you, I guess, start and grow your own business.
Well, what I really enjoy is the feedback. As I mentioned in one of my posts, I'd like to get more feedback, right? But the feedback from other people, because even though I've been working out for 38 years, as one of my threads is, I'm learning things that training yourself, you can only see so much, learning things from other people. So for me, getting feedback, simple things like, with the neck machine, how to properly use it. I believe it was Rick Stadden. I probably mispronounced his name, who was very helpful with that. Cass has been very helpful for things. So for me, of course, the podcasts themselves have been, I don't listen to each and every podcast. I was listening to Ben. This week I listened to Ben Bocchicchio. Yeah, that one's a tongue twister, right? And I listened to that one. I thought that was a really good. A lot of the podcasts are really helpful. The feedback that I get when I ask questions from people are very helpful, very giving and whatnot. The contacts that you're making, because of course what you don't see on the HIT business community is I've reached out to some people directly, right? Kire,
over at Evolved Health.
Evolved Health.
Yeah,
and I
can never pronounce her last name. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel good that I got the first name right because I messed it up when I was talking to her. I think Kire is the proper way of saying it. We've had some stuff. I've also spent some time with, I'm going to forget his name now, over in Texas.
Skylar
Tanner. Yes. Yeah. Spent some time with him. So there's those contacts. These people all over the world. The other thing I mentioned about the provincial grant, the government grant, is one of the things that they're going to be looking at is whether the business that I'm looking at is actually viable. So being able to take all these businesses from all over the world that have been around for, in some cases, years and decades, and being able to show what they're doing is going to speak a lot to, because for a lot of the people I'll be making presentations for, maybe bureaucrats, other business owners, whatnot, who probably don't understand, the whole concept of abbreviated training.
Yeah, they just want to see the numbers, right? I imagine.
They just want to see the numbers, and this may sound far-fetched to them, right, as it does to most people who have never heard of it. So, yeah, they want to see the numbers. So when you can point out that, this is being done successfully all over the place. So anyways, yeah, it's been a great resource for me. And I, like I say, my one thing, if anybody's listening to this, is I'd love to say a shout out to people to just try to maybe make a commitment to post once a week or to check things out once a week. And I realize that these people are busy running their businesses. And I know they're all grateful for the great work that you're doing, for these amazing podcasts. Because, that's what, we talk to people, everybody says. Kire, in fact, was saying how amazing it is to be starting a business right now for me with, your resource, right? Because basically everything you want to know about running a business, you'll find it on there, right? From people who have been there in the trenches.
Yeah, exactly. No, I really appreciate your review, your thoughts, and I think the community. I think it's an interesting one because I think the primary feature of the membership for most people is probably consuming various how-to content as and when they need it. Again, there's so much there, as you pointed out, that I would never expect someone to be able to consume it all because they'll never take action. They'll just be overwhelmed, and that's not productive. The cool thing is, as you probably discovered, Richard, is with the membership, it will index all of the podcast and blog content as well as the paid content. And so when you do a search like how to retain clients or how to market your hit business or whatever, it will pull up everything from all domains, from the public and the private, which is so cool because I think, as you said, I've been doing this for about 5 or 6 years now. And so the library we have is so cool. And I'm as excited as you guys in actually learning from that myself and going back through it as I build my own business, and then obviously documenting and sharing that journey, which I've kind of started to do. So that's very exciting. But in terms of the community, I think people are quite busy with their business. Obviously, some people are active. But I know for a fact that as we grow the community, more of that will take place, and there'll be more back and forth and people posting. I think part of it's on me to make that a little easier for people. So we'll work on that over time. But no, appreciate your thoughts, and I'm glad it's been really useful for you. What was I going to ask you? Going back to your business for a moment, I'd love to hear like what some of the lessons learned have been for you. Like, what are some of the mistakes you made in the beginning, which you would do differently this time around? Do you think?
Well, I don't know if I would categorize it as a mistake, but a sense, a source of frustration is not the right word, but sort of intrigue. And I think it's a good thing because it's challenged things. As I invested in the in-body body composition tool, thinking to myself, I'll be able to show my clients, specifically how much muscle they're gaining. And by and large, I am not seeing people gaining a whole lot of muscle mass as far as the in-body tool comes to play, which, source of frustration is, and I'm downplaying it now more because at the beginning I was kind of saying, look, you're going to see how much muscle you're gaining. And then afterwards sort of having to backpedal a little bit. And on the one hand, if I had just been measuring strength increases, just this morning, I sent people a weekly sort of progress report, a receipt, for what they've sent. I sent an email. I was just showing upper body strength. The lady is up, I forget now, one of them upper and lower body. I forget which is which, but one was up 187%. in, like 11 weeks. The other one was up 150%. So if I had never bought the InBody tool, I'd be raving about, how much stronger they are. And I would be assuming that this would have translated to increased muscle mass. So the reason I'm not going to call it a mistake is it's going to be a source of learning for me, because it's kind of like when we get stronger, what's actually happening to us, or maybe I'll even use a different wording. When our weights go up on the machines, are we getting stronger? Are we gaining muscle mass? Is there a mental thing? Whereas at the beginning, maybe people can't get their heads around working that hard, and they eventually mentally, because I don't know if you've ever seen sometimes is people's based just on mental belief of how much weight is there or what they're able to do or not, can all of a sudden lift a lot more, whether the neurological efficiency and the patterns are being cemented in, whether the tensile strength of things like joints, ligaments, and tensions, and the actual muscle is getting stronger, and whereas the body saves muscle mass growth for, a very last resort. And I know with Doug McGuff, I remember when I was on a Q&A with him, he said that the population that we tend to ascribe to is going to be one that's less likely to put on, slabs of muscle type of thing. And yet, when I look at that, I'm still kind of intrigued as to, I said in my intro about, not being dogmatic and whatnot. There's all these studies about 1 set versus 3 sets and all these different things. And, if you read Martin Berkham's material.
Lean Gains, I read his book. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and, the idea of he does 3 sets, but they're not your typical 3 sets, right? And also, I think, one of the things, and of course, high intensity training, Doug talked about intensity, frequency, and volume. And it seems like dogmatic, like intensity is the one that you can't touch. You can play with, if you feel that you need to make changes, change the frequency, change the volume, to some extent, right? But then intensity is like can't touch that. And I think, Doug said one time is try a little more volume, try a little more frequency, maybe lower the intensity. And I think when it's called high intensity, there has to be a certain amount of intensity. We know that. It has to be hard work. But, I think Skylar Tanner said, sorry about this fly that keeps flying here. He said as soon as people start making faces, holding their breath, things like that, he says that's what failure is for him. So, this ultra thing, and sometimes people do that. And if you look at Martin Berkham's, when he says this AMRAP thing, as many reps as possible, which in the beginning is like, okay, that's just a fancy way of saying failure. But he, specifies that when he feels the next rep is not going to happen, he doesn't even try it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's.
But that's where we don't. That's what we don't know, is it? Where exactly that threshold is, which will trigger that adaptive response, and failure is like seen as like a sure way just to make sure you get there.
Yeah, but let me just push back a little bit and going with Gary Wright. Is it Gary Wright?
Gary Knight.
Gary Knight, yes, I knew I was getting that wrong. See, his idea of a standardized speed is the other way you can do it is, let's say it's 4 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever you choose, is you can also define failure as soon as the client cannot do the rep in 4 seconds, that's failure. Because then it's like, how do you define it? Well, the guy couldn't do it in 4 seconds. You know what I mean? So we're still stopping short of this, failure or beyond failure type of thing. And of course, what I do is I do all sorts of different things for myself. I use the 30-second negative, 10 reps, 30-second negative. I do these various things, and I think they all have their place. But I think sometimes, like I didn't listen to the podcast with John Little, but I read his book, and sometimes I think he's drawing conclusions from limited sampling. Because, he's saying beyond a certain point, if you're playing hockey or whatever it is, that, you're just not going to gain anymore. But then I'm thinking, well, what if you lowered the intensity during that period of time? And maybe, that example, someone who's playing hockey 3-4 times a week, probably that's too much in any case. But, when we look at, and of course, you always have to be doing it, because you and I, we're never going to stop looking for that little thing that might get you that extra half pound or whatever it is. And while somebody might say, well, we're being obsessive or even maybe a little neurotic about it, I think you have to continue to question and see and whatnot, because I think it's self-fulfilling prophecy of saying, well, that's as good as I'm going to get. Now I'm just going to go through the routine and do a big 3 or a big 5 every 7-8 days and go from there. To me, you have to continuously be tweaking.
I agree.
To see what can happen, right? And even though perhaps it'll be a futile endeavor, but I don't think you can ever settle. So anyways, I digressed a lot there, but the in-body thing, having a body composition tool, and a shout out to people, because I thought of starting a thread. Maybe I need to start a thread of the people who do have body composition tools in their, whether it's the in-body or the DEXA or are they seeing regular increases and whatnot? Because, you were at REC, and if we look around, as most of us, right now, one of the guys I'm watching and I'm very interested in, I have to congratulate, is Fred Hahn.
Yeah.
Fred Hahn right now at 57 years old or whatnot, obviously his leanness, but he's putting on muscle. And this is after the guy's probably putting, so he's kind of going, all due respect to John Little, remember at my first podcast, I said my goal was to prove
him wrong. Yeah.
Right? Well,
I remember that all those years ago.
Fred right now is doing some remarkable things. And by the way, as an aside, yet another aside in the middle of the aside, in August, I reached my highest muscle since I got the machine. I had before it was February, then I kind of stagnated, and then in August. So what was I doing differently? I've been doing way more intermittent fasting.
Interesting.
So, and Fred, that's part of Fred. So, going as far as 28 hours, 32 hours, and interestingly, doing some personal bests at the end of a 28-hour fast, right? Without eating for 28 hours and then getting on a leg press. Well, I think I might have posted that one where I got it on a leg press. Oh, I didn't post that one. I posted one after that. But even those, the last couple I posted were at the end of fasts. And it appears to be, now mind you, in between fasts, I'm eating a lot, right? But it seems that fasting and that supposed idea of the human growth, the growth hormone increases that it does, the energy, like right now I'm talking a lot because I'm in the middle of a fast.
Yeah. Now, this is super interesting, and I know Fred reported some really interesting numbers in terms of muscle growth and fat loss, which he attributes to fasting, and I think he's got a 6-hour eating window, high fat, high protein, I believe, but his training doesn't sound like it's changed all that much. I think he still trains twice a week in a HIIT fashion. We're actually talking tomorrow, I think. We'll be going through that. So we'll be touching on what he's changed, how his beliefs have changed, and probably some business stuff too. No, that's so interesting. And do you know off the top of your head, like how your numbers have changed on your in-body since making those changes?
I can send them to you, but in the last little bit, hang on here. Can I do this without messing this up?
Yeah, go for it.
See if it comes up here. I'll tell you what, why don't rather than spend the last few minutes, I'll send them to you and show you what I did in August. Because I actually lost fat and gained muscle in the same length of time. Doing this, I didn't lose a lot of body weight, but that's good. I got leaner and more muscular. And what I'm doing with the InBody tool too is, rather than look at any specific day, I use it every day. And then I just take the monthly average.
Right. Okay.
Because on a given day, what I've noticed, I don't know about Bod Pod, I don't know about DEXA, but the InBody tool can vary a lot. Like if you wanted to get on my InBody and look really good one day and make yourself feel good, my recommendation would be to have pasta the night before and a piece of cheesecake for dessert and whatnot. And believe it or not, the next day your weight will be up, but your body fat percentage will actually be down and your muscle will be weighed up.
Because it would just be all the water, right, retained in the muscle is what it's picking up, I assume.
Yeah, because muscle is 70% water, right? Yeah. Like when you're in a bodybuilding contest, they tell you when you're peaking, if you vary carbs and protein, because if you retain lots of water, your muscles look bigger. But if you have too much water, they look smooth and you're not cut. If your water is really low, you look more cut, but if it's too low, then you look really small. And the InBody tool seems to be reinforcing that that's not just subjective. That appears to be very objective to do that. But of course, which is why one of the things it measures is dry mass. So dry mass, no water. And so I'm able to compare if my weight fluctuates from one to the other, what is it coming from? So there's the fat pounds, there's the water, and there's the dry mass. And the combination of those three comes to almost exactly what's happening. So, it's educational. So I won't say I regret it, but it's educational. It makes me wonder, because we always said, Arthur Jones, a bigger muscle is a stronger muscle is a bigger muscle. I'm not actually sure if that's completely accurate. It may not be wrong, but I think it's incomplete. So,
yeah, give me a lot to think about. I mean, in terms of so knowing what as you said there, you're surprised that new clients weren't putting on a lot of muscle mass when you started training them. Why do you think that is? I mean, so looking at the InBody stats, were you seeing like no changes to their muscle mass over time? Like what have you seen overall?
Slight increases, no changes, or actual decreases.
Yeah.
All of which, though, are they're lifting more weight. They're getting stronger as far as what's measured on the machine. So having said that, some of the learning and some of the art, I mean, you and I just got certified and hit uni, right? In the last, for me, just a few months before you. But where the art comes in is as people are getting various results, how do we start to vary, adding in an exercise, fewer exercise, more exercising, changing the frequency, these types of things. And that's sort of the art of doing this. And within the parameters or the limitations, if you will, of, some people are going to come every Tuesday and Thursday. In other words, you can't really say, well, let's add an extra day of rest or whatever it is. So you have to do it. Whereas, if you, like, for me, I can play with a lot of things because I'm sitting in my gym. You know what I mean? So if I'm looking at it and going, I'm going to take an extra day before I do leg press again. Because the other thing that's interesting for me is I'm working out frequently. Not every day, but almost every day. But often it's only one, two, or three exercises. So, for example, in a leg press, I was looking at it the other day, I'm only doing the leg press every 10 to 12 days, right? And a lot of the exercises I'm doing only every 10 to 12 days. Very few more than every 4 or 5 days, but I'm working out more often, but just different body parts. right? I mean, there's overlap, obviously.
So you'll do like a big 2 or big 3 every other day, or would it work out something like that?
Yeah, sometimes I just do one, right? And also my exercise might be I'll do one set in the morning and another set in the afternoon. On the day of jiu-jitsu, I use the gluteator before I go because I've realized that jiu-jitsu has been very humbling to realize just how tight my hamstrings and my hips are. Oh, yeah.
I booked him in.
No, you can go.
I can go?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, that was my wife just making sure that. So this is where the dogs could start barking. It was
sure, no worries.
So yeah, on those days I do a workout and I'll likely today I'm going to be doing jiu-jitsu fasted, which will be a first, which at the beginning I would have avoided, but now I'm finding that I'm able to. If I can do a heavy-duty workout fasted, I'll be able to do that as well. So what exactly is causing my clients to have this progress or lack of in terms of actual muscle mass? I'm still asking myself the same question. And hopefully as a result of this podcast and, doing a thread or other people have these tools, because I saw some of the studies with James Fisher and whatnot, where they were looking at various, variables and whether they made a difference or not. And an impression I got, I didn't look at too closely, is that these people were actually gaining muscle mass during these periods, both the control group and the other group. And these are people who had been trained for at least 6 months. And I'm not seeing that. Now, maybe at 18 clients, I'm still getting a limited sampling, but I don't have...
What science was this? What paper was this?
Remember the ones where they were doing the things where they tested if pre-exhaustion made a difference, whether
right.
they're using a single joint versus compound made a difference. And
sure.
It seemed, and also I think they used one to see, intensity extenders like force
right.
grips and things.
Yeah, so like 12 week time span, something like that. Yeah.
And I think they were using in-body or bod pods to measure. Mm-hmm. And what I did like about those studies is they weren't just using strength increases, they were using actual body composition increases. I mean, one of the things I think is that, even though Arthur Jones may have said, he used to say that Sergio Oliva would gain his muscle on pizza and Coca-Cola, and that nutrition didn't really matter. And for a long time, the Nautilus principles, nutrition was like really poo-pooed. Type of thing as being irrelevant. But I think protein absolutely matters. Yeah. I think intermittent fasting can absolutely matter. I think that diet, it does make a big difference as to whether the strength increases translate to actual muscle mass or not.
Mm-hmm. So just on back to...
the other question is, and the other question is, should we even care? I.e., if you're getting stronger and you're feeling better, right? Yeah. Because if you were in a sport that was in a weight class, ideally you'd love to get stronger and not gain weight because you don't want to get the next weight class.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. Just on your numbers now, I know you're going to send those over to me and maybe we can just embed them in the blog post for this. But do you know by how many pounds or indices of a pound that your personal lean mass increased?
So in July, I brought it up here. So in August, my dry mass went from 40.8 to 41.3. So that's half a pound. And that's not based on a given day. That's based on the average of all my July ones to all my August ones. So that's half a pound. And actual, what they call skeletal muscle mass, which includes water, I gained a pound. So, I mean, a pound in a month, a pound doesn't sound like much, but a pound in a month. And those two numbers were, in fact, the best numbers since I got the in-body machine. As far as what they call lean pounds, which includes organs and everything else, it was just under 2 pounds. And as far as fat pounds, it went from 24.1 to 23.3. So that's 0.8. So that means basically, I lost 0.8 of a pound of fat. And if I ignore the other ones, and then I've gained about 0.5 lean mass, but the water part, by the way, is so about 1.5 pounds of water in that.
Right. Okay.
So, it doesn't sound like much, but if I was able to gain 0.5 pound of dry mass or 1 pound of mass for a year, it'd be phenomenal. So the biggest change in August was the intermittent fasting. And I used, if you want to have a resource, there's this phone app that I use called Body Fast, which I think either comes from Germany or whatever. And they kind of coach you and they tell you when to fast based on your goals. Mm-hmm. So I use that because I find that coaching is helpful for me. And so every week, what it does is you can get it for free, but it's like 45 Canadian for 3 months of quote unquote coaching. I think it's being done probably by a computer, but it gives you a weekly schedule and says this week, okay, you lost, you didn't lose. Was it hard? Was it easy? It gives you your schedule for the next week. And then you have the ability to move the fasting periods, an hour before, an hour later to make it fit. Because let's say you're going out for dinner with some friends and you want to move it back and forth, or you got a workout schedule at a certain time, and then you can adjust it. And then basically it tells you, okay, just got this phone app that says, okay, now you're eating. And then after a certain time, it says, now you're fasting. And sometimes it's 12 hours. Sometimes it's the longest so far was 28 hours. Although that particular one, just because of circumstances, I wound up not eating till 4 hours later. I was busy and I went 32 hours that particular time.
Yeah.
So I find that that's an interesting way of doing it. And of course, obviously, like Fred's doing like an 8-hour window or a 6-hour window and whatnot. I think all these things will work, but I think there's something to this intermittent fasting. And energy level is through the roof. Well, you've done it. I'm sure you've had the same experience.
Yeah. I probably need to remove the coffee intake that I rely on at the moment a bit too much. Because I think I'm going through a phase at the moment where I don't actually really fast right now. I'll usually have my first meal around 10, 11, and then I might have dinner. But I don't have necessarily an eating window. I'd like to go back to that. I hear a lot of people having success with eating earlier in the day, so eating a breakfast and then having their last meal around maybe 4 p.m. And then fasting after that, and also having better sleep quality as a result of not eating so late, and getting good results that way. So,
well, the Body Fast app lets you drink black coffee.
Right. Okay.
I drink. I think
that's my problem, though. I'm relying on it too much.
I guess I know. Maybe I do. Martin Burkham is a big fan of drinking coffee. I probably think this mug here that you're seeing probably holds 2.5 cups, and I will go through. I probably drink 5 or 6 cups of coffee every day.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't drink or do drugs or eat very much dessert and whatnot. So I got to have vices, but I think. Yeah, we all got to do something bad, but I don't know. The coffee I think probably has some very positive things to it as well.
I'm not so sure.
But I try to drink lots of water in between and whatnot. But the Body Fast app is kind of cool in that some days you have breakfast, some days you don't. Some days you don't eat at night, some days you do. I've only been at it for a month, but so far. It seems to be like a cool app to go to.
Sounds useful. Yeah, I'll definitely add that to the show notes for sure. Richard, I need to wrap up in a moment, but one thing I wanted to ask you before we sort of get going is just if you've got any thoughts or tips for the new people out there who are starting high intensity training businesses.
Well, my personal bias, having come from insurance sales, is, when people start a business, part of the challenge is that you have to be good at a lot of different things. I mean, you can be an expert and be, the most knowledgeable trainer in the world, but at the end of the day, you got to get clients through the front door. You got to know something about retaining clients. You got to know about appreciating clients, things like that. So I would say the sales part of it, you've got to either get it done or have somebody do it for you. And I'm a big believer that you got to pound the pavement, whether it's pick up the phone. I'm not a big fan of emails or social media. See, my website, social media, all those things are there to create legitimacy. And what I mean by that is if somebody does check out my website, they go, oh, look, this is a real business. He's got a real website, and it seems hopefully somewhat impressive, and there's some good material on there and whatnot. But I don't really think that people are I'm going to get a lot of clients from my website or from my Facebook posts or things like that. It's just keeping them so that when I do call them and I say, hey, this is Rick Chartrand, and then they'll say, oh, yeah, I've heard of you. And it'll warm up the call. And of course, referrals is the big thing. So, you got to be a salesperson. If you have a problem with being a salesperson, then you better have somebody who doesn't have a problem being a salesperson for you. For new people, bottom line is you got to get people through the front door.
Totally. Yeah, sales is a critical skill, I think. Too many people are scared of it or have a stigma around it. But, all sales is helping someone with a problem. That's all it is. It shouldn't be, you shouldn't feel, if you're being a pushy salesperson, then yeah, that's not obviously the type of salesmanship you want to aspire to. You want to be a good listener, ask great questions, understand what someone needs, and then help them solve their problem. And there are some great resources on the podcast. I had Bill Crawford, who did an entire episode with me on sales, with his wife, and that is just packed with great tactical advice on how you actually have that conversation. And I'm sure there's more in the on the podcast, and probably stuff from Luke and others on that too. Dwayne Wimmer actually does some good stuff on sales. So yeah, I think if anyone who's serious about this, who does want to take on that responsibility, you've got to go and learn about it for sure.
Yeah, and just actually make the approaches. If a person says, for example, make 3 approaches a day. If you're not good at it, after doing 3 approaches a day, you'll make some mistakes. Maybe sometimes you'll be too pushy. Maybe sometimes you won't be pushy enough, but you'll eventually get better at it.
Yeah, right? And you will inoculate yourself against the fear of doing it as well, right? The more you do it, the more it just becomes natural. It's like there's a famous entrepreneur called Noah Kagan who I had on the show many moons ago, and he has the coffee challenge, right? So if you're someone who's wants to become a good salesperson or wants to start a business, this is a great little way to build resilience and deal with rejection. And basically, you go into a Starbucks and you ask for 10% off of your coffee, and when they say why, you just say, oh, I'd like to have 10% off, please. And the point is not to obviously get 10% off. It's just to go through that process and have someone say, oh, sorry, we can't do that. And just realize that, nothing bad happened. You didn't die.
Right.
And I actually did it and I actually got 10% off before, which was quite funny. I didn't expect that. But these are great. That's a great little, if anyone's listening to this who is like, you know what, I know I need to learn sales. I know I need to build some resilience, then perhaps try doing the coffee challenge. That might actually help get you started in terms of, building that resilience and realizing that it's not all that scary, So.
The best sales book I would recommend to anybody is called The Game of Numbers.
Okay.
And I'm having a mental block now as to the author's name.
I'll find that. Put it in the show notes.
But
I've heard
the
of that
game
one.
of numbers, and it basically comes down to, well, the title says it all, but he explains what it is and whatnot. It's just make the approaches, and you're, even if you get turned down, right? Like if you approach three people and they all say, get away from me now, or I'm going to call the police and have you taken away, you did your job, right? And then the next day make three more type of thing, and just go from there. And it's based on financial services, but it would apply to any role. And have a script. Don't get on the phone and ad lib. Ad lib's for amateurs, right? Know what you're going to say ahead of time, and use a script. That's another thing. People they don't like sales, they don't like scripts, but you and I know these things work.
Richard,
right?
I had a script when I sold to you.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah, absolutely. And you should, right? I'd be disappointed. I mean, as a salesperson, one of the reasons you got the sale is because you asked, and because I respect that you asked, right? So when people ask, to me, some people might find it annoying, but with my background, I go, good for him. He closed. And if I can, when somebody closes, I just think they should deserve something. Now, of course, I'm probably much more sympathetic to salespeople than John Q. Public. But I just think I know that person. It took some courage to do that, and they did it, and they asked. So good for them.
Yeah, I'm like the easiest person to close ever. Like I had someone email me recently, and they pitched Facebook ads to me, and it's something that I've been thinking about trying in terms of driving people to the podcast and to the membership, because I've not even really been experimenting with it at all. And they sent me an email, cold email, and they did a little video, and they videoed themselves talking about, actually looking at my website and looking at what could be done via Facebook ads. And that was really impressive, and so I thought, let's have a conversation. And they're local as well, so they're in Galway, but weather was terrible, so we jumped on Skype. And he was excellent salesperson. At the end, he objection handled me, and then he said, is there, he got sort of figured out what was stopping me from moving forward, because I was quite hesitant. And he resolved that, and then we came to an agreement, and he closed me. And it's just, like you, I have greater sympathy for salespeople, and I am just easy to close, I suppose, maybe for that reason. But.
Well, Nick Murray is the author of The Game of Numbers. Just
right, appreciate it.
Right?
Yeah.
So the thing that he refers to is the avoidance shark. And the avoidance shark is all the things that will get into your mind to convince you that you don't need to make the calls. Right. And that's pretty much anything. You can use anything. Well, I have to train a client. Well, I have to clean up my facility. I have to get it all vacuumed up. You name it. Anything you can think of that's not making calls can be used to avoid making calls. Right? Yeah. So it's kind of like make the calls. Make that the first thing you do every day, your highest priority. Set yourself a reasonable goal. I'm going to dial the phone 3 times. Like today, I'll make a commitment here. I got to dial the phone 6 times before the end of the day. If I get 6 busy signals or 6 voice machines, fair enough. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that I made the 6 dials.
Yeah.
Even if I get turned down 6 times.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So because we have found the enemy, and he is us. Right. Which if I can get myself to do it, if you do it regularly on a consistent basis, you will inevitably, well, I won't say inevitably. Somebody once said to me, is it possible to make the calls diligently and still fail in sales? And the answer is yes, it is possible. I've never seen it happen, but it's possible. But I can tell you, if you don't make the calls, you absolutely will fail.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's unusual to have someone, if they've got a good work ethic and they they create a good script, and like they follow that diligently. I've never seen that fail. I don't care what people say. You can become a good salesperson having had absolutely no sort of quote unquote natural sales skills, in my opinion. And also, just going back to what you're saying about a script, I don't want people thinking that we're talking. I mean, the way when I say script, I'm not talking about reading a script verbatim. I have script pointers, and I have certain bullet points that I want to cover. Right. And that's what I used when I was doing sales calls. It's just a crutch, isn't it? It's something to help you. But it's not like, when you call some big, I don't know, telecoms company up about your, I don't know, phone contract or internet or whatever it is, their help desk people will actually be almost, reading the script verbatim, right? But that's not what we're saying here.
But the only difference between you and them is you're doing the script well and they're doing the script badly.
Right.
Right? But you know what? If they stay at it, those people will eventually get better. And it's like anything else. If when you first start, they're like the people who are starting to learn how to skate and are falling down. They're doing it badly. They maybe hate their jobs, maybe, but eventually they'll get better at it. Now, eventually you talked about leveraging. You get to the point, because your first question was advice for new people. So that's my advice for new people. But you get to the point where it becomes spontaneous and automated, where you have enough clients referring you that you actually have the phone ringing the other way, right? Sure. Like I met a guy the other day who had a business for 7 years here in Ottawa, and he's doing 80 sessions a week, and his waiting list, he's got people on waiting lists, 6 months to a year. He has no more time. So when somebody calls them and says, I've heard about you and I need to say, yeah, but it'll probably be about 6 months before I can get you in.
Yeah.
So that's the ideal. And interestingly, when you get there, people think, well, this guy must be really good because you have to wait in line to get in there, right?
That's right. That's right.
One of the things I got to run, but I remember a little bit of a joke to end things off. I have an advisor that was a hoot, and sometimes he'd say, I call people, somebody I'd called 2-3 times and I couldn't get an appointment with him. And he says, I would call them and say, Lawrence, listen, I'm really sorry. I can't fit you in this week. I'm completely booked, but I think I could fit you in at the end of next week. Does that work for you? and he was probably making up the whole thing, but he was creating the perception of,
Scarcity,
you're lucky that I'm able to find time for you.
Yeah.
Opposed to, because you never want to sound desperate. You never want to sound like you're begging for the business.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because when people feel like, oh, geez, I'm not sure if I can fit you in, but I'll see if I can find time for you. Much more powerful than you say, well, when can I come in? Say, anytime. I'm wide open. I don't have any clients.
Which just says that you're crap at your job, right? Or your service, if that's the case. That's the signal it sends, a message. Richard, I want to be respectful of your time. This has been so much fun as always. I love just being able to catch up with you in this kind of format. There's so much more we could talk about. But I want to be respectful of your time. And I've also got to get ready here. What's the best way for the listeners to find out more about you? What's your website? Things like that?
The website, sustainablesuccess.ca. Of course, the Facebook page by the same name. And my email is pretty simple, richard@sustainablesuccess.ca. So pretty much Sustainable Success is the best way to reach me.
Awesome. And to find the blog post for this episode, please go to highintensitybusiness.com/Richard. And for all episodes, please go to highintensitybusiness.com/podcast. And until next time, thank you very much for listening.
Discover how to achieve your health and fitness goals, become a great personal trainer, and build a successful, high-intensity training business. Check out highintensitybusiness.com. highintensitybusiness.com.